So we are going to use a yoga strap today. You have one of those, you can make sure that's within arm's reach of wherever you plant yourself. And we're going to start lying down. This might be a little dangerous, but we're going to give it a try. I'm going to set myself up with like a little bit of a fish pose. So using a pillow. You could also take a blanket and kind of roll it up. If you would like to do something that's a little bit softer, and that might go down the length of your spine, or you could use 2 yoga blocks, or 1 yoga block and a pillow, whatever you might have. So the yoga block going underneath your shoulder blades, and then another support for your head. That's what we're after. I'm going to kind of fiddle with the support here. So for me, the pillow is a little less firm than the blocks, but almost as pushy. It lifts my rib cage almost as much. So I like the blocks and the pillows to be up just underneath the shoulder blades. If I'm using a blanket, I usually have that come all the way down to the bottom of my ribs. So the legs can be outstretched, the legs can be in a butterfly, you can have the feet resting on the floor if you have a preference. You can even have an asymmetrical setup where you've got one bent leg and one straight if that's appropriate. I'll give you a halfway mark and you can switch. And whether if nothing underneath your back is better, you can also just lie down. We're going to let ourselves breathe in such a way that we pay attention to the movement of the ribs in and out, up and down. I'm giving myself like just a little pause at the top of the inhale and making the exhale really soft. Almost like it just falls out. So if you have like an asymmetrical thing with your legs, you could switch. Stay for about that long again. Thing that's kind of a little bit of something for me to pay attention to when I'm doing kind of concentrated or a technique with the breath is that I don't develop any tension in my mouth, like no tension in the upper palate or the tongue or the lips. So you can drop the technique of holding at the end of the inhale and letting the exhale come out really relaxed if you like, or you can keep that for a little bit longer. And if that's the case, pardon me, we'll want to keep the mouth really relaxed. Okay, we'll take one more breath. And then I'm gonna roll over to the side and scoop the pillow out. However many objects you've got there. And then go ahead and give yourself a little bit of movement that gets the body moving in some way. It can be just a little teeny tiny jiggling of your fingers and toes. I'm a big fan of these little kind of windshield wipery moves. You can pull the knees into your chest, whatever you like better. I'm gonna kind of keep the same movement, but I'm gonna put my right ankle up on top of my left thigh. And again, you could do this with the legs kind of held in closer to the chest if you like. And what's the pivot point for me right here is this kind of, portion of my abdomen. It's a twist. Now, I'm going to hold on to my leg a little closer to my chest, stretch out the opposite leg, and now, rather than the pivot point be my waist, it's going to just be right here at the hip socket, a little rock the baby. You can keep going with the movement that you had before if this one is ridiculous. I take my right hand, reach in here and grab hold of my left foot. If that is not going to work, you can go ahead and employ your strap already and hold on to the strap instead. And then this opposite leg is actually where I'm going to focus my attention. So I'm going to stretch my left side out so it feels long through the front of the hip and the front of the belly. You have two choices if that doesn't feel like there's enough room. Choice one is to pull this right thigh all the way to the ground. So now my left hip is off the floor. So as I stretch out, there's room for this hip to extend a little bit more. I don't need that room because my joint won't extend anymore. The second possibility is to almost create a little bit of a side bend. So that will stretch the same area, but from, a different angle. Rather than extending at the hip, we're extending the side waist. All right, one more breath. Now I'm going to release my foot and I'm going to put the strap around the ball of it. Now I'm going to flip over onto my back. So first I'm going to straighten out both legs. Flip over onto my back. Flip onto my side. I am on my back. All right, so my right arm is up. I'm going to roll onto my right side. Now I am going to do this overhead. I'm going to reach from overhead. You could also reach down for your foot if you like. So we're going to do this little sideline dancer pose. So I can put my left foot like that. I can extend the left leg out. I'm going to extend it out. And then I'm going to bring my elbows a little closer together. Enjoy the stretch in my quadriceps, or whatever that sensation is technically called. Stick for maybe like another 30 seconds here. So I'm going to go back to a straight leg and then roll back onto my back and bring that leg straight up. So that I can stretch out the other side. So I got the top. Now I'm going to go round to the back for the hamstrings. Now, sometimes in the morning, everything is a wee bit more sensitive than it is at any other time of day. So you might back off a little bit, like maybe not do as much as normal, whatever that means. If you're more accustomed to doing these stretches later in the practice or later in the day, make it a little softer. There's also little opportunities where like we can rotate internally or externally. You can point the toes or flex the ankle, or you can even pronate or supinate the foot, which is like a little pivot. So pronating means the toe goes toward the ceiling and the pinky toe, big toe goes towards the ceiling, pinky toe comes away. And then supinating, the pinky toe goes towards the ceiling, the big toe comes lower. And that, just that little shift, for me, it plays with the calf muscles more than anything, but you might feel it all the way up to your glutes. And we'll stay for about 30 more seconds, give or take. All right, I'm going to take a big breath. Now I'm going to take my leg out to the side here, so that I can get into this sort of inner thigh, adductor, groin area. If your room is tiny, what you could do instead is keep your foot straight up and roll onto your left side, and then it's sort of like the dancer, but with the leg going straight up toward the ceiling instead. And then it'll get to the same area. Gravity's a little different. It might be nicer, it might be kinder. And again, for me, the little internal rotation takes away a little bit of the pressure from the inner thigh. If I externally rotate, it gets a little spicier. You can experiment and see if the same is true for you, if there's any difference at all. We're gonna stay for about 30 more seconds. I've got this weird tension in my mouth that's emanating from my canine teeth on my upper jaw. I have no idea what that's about. Anywho. Take one more breath. Now I'm gonna go really slow here. I'm gonna bend my knee, swing the leg to the center, take the strap off, and then bring in the other leg up. I'm gonna essentially wrap my legs around each other a little bit like an eagle. I can only do one wrap, but if you're legs will do too, you are welcome to do that extra wrap. I'm then gonna take my legs over to the left. Now I've got a pillow here, a blanket or a block would also work as just a landing pad. So it's a little soft place for the legs to land. I'm gonna adjust so my upper back feels more even on the floor. And then this will depend a little bit on how intense the stretch is, but you can take the arm out to the side if you want a little maybe more sensation of stretch across this big muscle in the chest. And you can have the arms a little closer to the body to sort of soften or deepen in a little more towards the kind of just stabilizer muscles in the front of the shoulder. And you can even cross the arms over the body if that feels better. And then I'm turning my head to the same direction as the legs. If this feels too spicy along the outer hip, you can undo the wrap or add more support on the bottom, or even in between the knees. Okay, let's do 2 more breaths. And then we'll come on back to the middle. Now essentially, I'm just gonna switch over to the other leg just for that initial movement pattern. Little side to side. You could pull the knees into your chest. Bring that leg in toward me, stretch the other one out, do a little rock the baby. Reach again, grabbing hold of the sole of my foot. I'm going to give myself a nice long stretch through the right side. Sometimes I call this half happy baby. Sometimes reclining lunge, ceiling lunging, sky lunge, sleeping dragon. I haven't decided on the right name. You guys tell me what your preference is. 2 more breaths. So I'm going to need my strap around the foot. This is going to be the Sideline Dancer. So I'm rolling onto the left side. Giving myself a little kickstand to start with. All right. I might keep the kickstand. This side's wobblier. So again, I'm reaching over my head, so I get a little extension through the backs of my arms as well, but you could just as easily hold with just the one hand down there. Either the foot itself or the strap. About 30 more seconds. Okay, I'm gonna take one more breath. And then I'm gonna let that leg come all the way straight first before I do this little unrolling, rolling back, switch around. And then we'll come to the little hamstring stretch. Little, it might not be that little. It might be the biggest hamstring stretch ever. Trying to be a little bit on the just barely perceptible edge. Like I just feel that stretching, that edge. With my quads, there's it's much more intense. The hamstrings for me is a little softer section of the leg to stretch out or feel or create sensation in. Feels a little bit like dessert compared to the necessity of the quad stretch, which feels a little bit more like vegetables. Hopefully you're following my metaphor. We'll take about 30 more seconds here. Now I've turned myself a little bit on the diagonal so I won't run into the plants. Of course, you can do that. Side lying, the one we're going to get to, which is this inner thigh stretch in the next 2 breaths or so. You can do that one, like I said, rolling onto your right side and letting the leg go straight up. If you too have some space limitations. So I'm going to do one more big breath and then come out to the side. I've got a little pillow here, and then I'm also just sort of hanging on to the strap with my hand so that I find the just right spot. This is an area of the leg for me that's quite sensitive, which makes sense. Anywhere where there's a lot of tendon, there's gonna be sensitivity. And this whole inner line of the thigh is like, I call it a super highway of attachment. There's muscle that attaches almost the entire length of the thigh, not just one muscle, many muscles connect along this outer thigh. The other spot on the leg, that's another kind of super area, is like this greater trochanter of the femur. Almost everything on the outer hip connects to that. Everything on the inner thigh connects to this long length of the thigh bone here. So it makes sense that it's that it's an intense potential area. The sit bones are another spot, right, that connect. A ton of muscle connects to each of those little ischial tuberosities on the bottom of the pelvis. Which you should just say that word out loud for yourself, ischial tuberosity, 2 words, just because they're fun to say. Tuberosity sounds like we're talking about herbal medicine to me. Oh goodness. Let's do another 30 seconds or so. I'm going to do one more big breath. And then again, I'm going to come in really gently, bending the knee and bringing the foot around toward me. I'm going to let that hover for a moment while I put the other foot on the ground. And then I'm going to do this little eagly wrap and position myself in a twist. Oh, hello there. All right, I don't want there to be too much sensation. That feels a little spicy, so I'm going to back off just a little bit. So to back it off, I just brought the pillow a little further up my thigh so that it was a little bit less of a distance for my legs to travel before they landed. To just let myself relax with every exhale, and we'll stay again for about 30 more seconds. Take one more big breath. I'm going to bring myself to the middle. I'm going to undo the legs, give myself a big stretch. And then for a moment, I'm going to let myself rest on the floor, but do this, like some little circles with the ankles, maybe the wrists, little wiggles of the finger and toe. I'm trying to move like the metatarsals, this little muscle, the bones in the middle of my foot, and also maybe my metacarpals also. There's only so much I can move those areas. It's mostly phalangeal movement, but it feels nice to try. Now, if you had some extra time, you could put your legs up on, like I've got a chair down there, I could pull that chair in toward me, put my legs up on the seat of it, and do a little light inversion. But for our purposes, we're gonna roll onto our side, hang out there for a bit. I can scratch the areas of my back I can touch. Basically, I'm just petting myself. Come on up. All right, so thanks for joining me. We're a little stretch out. Let's just coming back to a seated position, see if, for me, there's a greater sense of ease around my hips and legs. So hopefully that's true for you too. Let's do a couple of deep breaths. Nice big inhale. Exhale out in nice big inhale. Exhale. Whenever it's time to exhale, nice big inhale. One more. Exhale. You can bring your palms together if that feels nice. Maybe touch them to your little upper cauldron here, your third eye. Maybe the heart is the right spot. Take a nice big inhale. Enjoy the rest of your day, friends. Namaste.